Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Collin. I'm the chief of bothering. My role here at Luminous is pretty varied. It's all over the place. I'm the chief of bothering because it's kind of my job to ping people when something needs to get done, keep things on track. I'm usually the point of contact between us and anyone out there, stores, manufacturers, artists, things like that. I also do card design, help with visual design, help with art direction, kind of just do a little bit of everything. And sitting behind me is Camri. In the room behind me, we're married.
Yeah. Hello, I'm Camri. I put head of aesthetics because if something needs to be designed visually, then I do it for Luminous. So that goes everywhere from our cards themselves to the packaging, our website, our upcoming Kickstarter launch, our con booth, printed materials, everything is what I work on.
Sweet. Yeah. So for our inaugural stream, we're going to try to do this every Monday. For our inaugural stream, we wanted to kind of talk about how we got where we were with the visual designs of Luminous. It's usually one of the first things that people notice is like how good the cards look, how good the booth looks, everything like that, in a large part due to Camry. So I wanted to give her a little time to, you know, show off why we got where we are, how we got there, things like that. And I think we're going to start with that. So it's going to be hard for you to read, Camry, but that is the first image you wanted us to share.
Yeah. So if everyone can see this is something that I put in our brand guide for Luminous, and it's really the very first thing that I created, which was just writing out, what is our world and what does it mean to build within our world. So, generally what this is a guiding kind of light for myself and anyone who designs or creates within Luminous visually. It does have a little bit of lore written by Corey about, the setting. And then, below it's just a little bit of information about, what it's important to remember, that the world isn't like our own, that there may be familiar styles and concepts to our own past and present, but nothing should be directly related to people or places from the real world. Which I think is, somewhat important whenever you are, working within a setting that's not just fantasy. Oftentimes, fantasy is, kind of like the past of Earth, like medieval past, for example. But this is a sci fantasy. Things even like plants and animals and certain beings are sometimes the same. Like we have, some plants and animals that we would recognize, and then there's some that we wouldn't. So I think that that's like a good like guiding light anytime, I'm, thinking about something maybe being too cliche or too in one thing, like very medieval or very, traditional fantasy aesthetic. Is there like a little twist that we can put on it? And then the image there is kind of a snapshot of the first piece of art that we had done before I think most of us even joined the team. It's the dragonfly. And that was like some, really the only thing I had to go off of whenever we joined the team is something that Colin had, other than his own stories. Colin Bevis, the creator of Luminous. And that was really inspiring to me. A lot of y'all will have seen this. It's actually on our card back. And just the idea of like it being something kind of familiar, but a little bit different. And that, really helped inform the world. And then the colors of this kind of informed like our brand colors and the colors that I use a lot for Luminous brand.
Yeah, Camry, Nathan asked if this is like from a specific document that we could share, or if it's just like something that you just have.
Yeah, so I have a Luminous brand guide that is pretty public. It doesn't include anything that's like private, or I have like private pages of it, but it is something that I share with, people as kind of like a media item. So yeah, I can definitely share some of these pages, but most of them we'll be kind of looking at here.
Yeah, just reach out if you want it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also just like, it's an example of a brand guide, something that in my previous work or my work, day-to-day work is something that I would create like in a corporate setting. It's going to have all of your guidelines for your brand, how to use your logo, how do you use color, in what settings do you use certain icons, things like that. But yeah, you can go to the next one, Colin. And then also, I kind of wanted to ask you, whenever you got, introduced to Luminous by other Colin, what were like the kind of, initial thoughts you had in your head about like the world and, what that might mean visually?
Um, that's a good question. I didn't have a ton of initial thoughts. I was mostly focused on the gameplay because it was just cards. It was Sharpies on like blank playing cards. So I wasn't really introduced to the world until after Corey was brought in. Um, but a lot of the current visual like identity of the artist, for I guess the art direction, is some blender version of Colin's original ideas with Corey's um, like take on things with sort of my help figuring out like concept art and stuff like that. I mean, Corey would be a better person to ask about that question.
Yeah, maybe on a future stream, Corey and I can talk about like how we picture, because sometimes he and I are like on the same page, and then sometimes he's like, no, actually, I think it's more like this, which is always like interesting like conversation to have. Like, especially if I'm like picking color like themes for a particular faction that in the future, like us kind of like negotiating like what does that mean about the faction itself and the art that we get done for it.
Yeah, I mean, I have this special brain that doesn't allow me to visualize things, so I think in shapes and numbers and lines and colors. I don't think in like I don't picture an apple.
And I do. I picture everything fully formed, like it's a glossy JPEG in my head.
Yeah, there's no JPEGs in my brain.
Yeah, I don't know, Colin, you're already showing the logo options there, sort of a grid of 4 Luminouses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what's next, right?
Yeah. So yeah, these were the 4 sort of concepts for the logo. I remember showing these on my phone at Colin Bevis's wedding to some of the folks during cocktail hour, and there were pretty strong reactions. Now that I'm looking at them, I kind of understand. The 2 on the left are like pretty bad, but I was being whimsical. But the 2 on the right, I think, are the stronger ones. Obviously, the one in the top right is the one we went with. In the bottom right, I just really like these kind of Germanic typefaces, and ended up using some, in other areas of our brand. But the Luminous we landed on is sort of a customization of a serif face, where I added these little like decorative swashes to like the L and the M and the S. I just kind of like drew shapes like onto them and kind of added them and moved the shapes around a little bit. And then for the eye, that is kind of meant to like evoke like an orb or like a flame sparking kind of in the Luminous idea. Because, when we came up with the name of Luminous, they had like a few permutations of names before that. But Luminous, I think all of us really liked because it felt not only kind of like magical and really went to like the orbs and the light, but it also felt kind of hopeful, which is really interesting. I don't know, Colin, what do you think?
Yeah, looking back on these, it is pretty wild. Like in my brain, it's so much number 2. Like it is. That's what our logo is basically. Like that. What that evolved into. That seeing the other ones is really crazy to me. Yeah. I mean, you'll see some. I guess homages to some of those other designs in some of the upcoming faction design, I'd say. So like it's there's a through line here that's really interesting to what we're currently working on. But yeah, I couldn't imagine a different logo now. Oh, you saw a mountain, Nathan, you saw a mountain in front of the moon. No, that's a flame or yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, really it's up to interpretation, right? Like these kinds of things. But yeah, it definitely could be that too. But yeah, the idea of drawing a little flame. Yeah. And then those are like just some different permutations of the logo. Once you settle on the logo mark, you kind of do the different lockups, right? This is very graphic designery terms, but how does it look on black? How does it look on white? we obviously need to be specific sometimes when we say luminous and use card game as like a subtext. Sometimes we don't, and we want people to ask us what's luminous. And then the LCG little bug kind of there in the hexagon. I use hexagons a lot in our visual language. They're kind of subtly throughout, and that is because there is like a lot of, lore around like bees. We have our hive queen in the wanderers, that I think will become like revealed over time, but that's where the hexagon kind of comes from, is like the beehive shape. And it just fits the LCG really well in that shape. So we use that sometimes as like a little like, badge. But yeah, you can go to the next one.
Looks like a bird. That's funny.
Wait, what looks like a bird? LCG?
No, the flame looks like a bird to
Oh,
sun makes me hot.
yeah. I love like this. This is always like the thing. Like, it's kind of like the Disney logo. Everyone thinks the D is a G, like including myself. It's all like once something's out there, it's like up for everyone else to like kind of own and like what they see in it.
Yeah, we are LCG. We are Luminous card game.
Yeah, I know. Like it. Yeah, I didn't. That was not intended. I didn't know enough.
Not an LCG, but we are LCG.
Yeah. So yeah, what we're looking at right now is just, after that point, brand colors are something you have to kind of start thinking about. What colors do you use whenever you are making business cards, making the website, making the con booth? Like everything kind of needs to like tie back to one idea. And I kept this pretty simple, and I actually used colors directly from that original piece of art, that dragonfly. So we've got the like really nice forest green. We've got this like blue, kind of like peacock blue that I call lapis, a red, like rusty red that I called flame, and then the gold glimmer, which is the one I use the most because we use a lot of black backgrounds, just to keep everything kind of like dark and mystical and moody, and really allow like the bright parts of luminous to shine. Most things in my day job are going to be a lot brighter and lighter, because I work as a UX designer, UI designer. Most apps are kind of designed in like white. So it's been really interesting to design everything kind of in this black backdrop. Like you'll notice our website is all black with white text. So kind of dark mode style for me, which is a little different, but it's fun.
Yeah, you'll also see like red, green, and blue were the original colors of the orbs. And this is Collin's story, but the reason they're red, green, and blue is because that was the pack of Sharpies you could get. You got a red, green, and blue and a black Sharpie, and that's what he wrote all of the costs with on the original cards, the original playtest cards. But thanks to colorblindness, Gabe being colorblind, we swapped to these colors.
Yeah, this was a sell like on my part. Whenever I saw they were like, oh yeah, and so the orbs are gonna be red, green, and blue, I was like, that's a little rough. Like rough from like, it's like RGB. It feels very like digital kind of in a way for one, and then red green color blindness is very common. So I knew that would be an issue. It's not a horrible issue. You can always like fix that in other ways by using icons and things like that. Like double encoding is the way they say it. Like, because there's even folks out there who would not be able to distinguish our orb colors today. So that's why, like, when you have the orb, you have the color and the icon inside, to like cover all cases. But I kind of suggested, early on, like, what if we tried shifting the colors? And these were the ones I came out with, which is the orange, green, and purple, Mardi Gras colors, as Corey likes to say.
Yeah.
But I think that the colors do contrast against each other fairly well, and they are not red green color blindness. We don't have that problem, and I think like in some instances, it's really kind of worked out well. Like I like to think, because like, purple being used for, the purple orb, it really lends itself to that kind of like mystical, magical spell, which I know purple and spell don't necessarily like always go together, but, typically you're going to see that, orange being like so like lively and like being kind of like a life force, and then green being maybe a little bit more like analytical of a color. I don't know. We're kind of getting into like color theory and how color makes people feel, but I feel like if they were swapped, it wouldn't be the same feeling, you know?
Yeah,
And
especially to Nathan's point as well in the chat. He said that like the orbs even have their own filigree that kind of matches their style. Like the orange orb is very like fluid and organic, and the green orb is incredibly rigid. And the purple orb is very kind of like chaotic. And in the future, the next batch of factions come with gray orbs, which will finish out our orb quadratic. I don't know.
quadratic equation.
Yeah. And it is kind of almost like putrid looking. I don't know how to describe it. It's really cool because gray is, you know, Corey can correct me if I'm wrong, but is kind of death. It's the opposite of life.
Yeah, more like the color of entropy.
Yeah, entropy is a good, yeah.
So yeah, this is, I have a lot of pages like this for all factions, but this is the one for the Wanderers, which we're all, you know, familiar with. But yeah, this is the sort of brand guide for the Wanderers, the colors that we use, the logo for the Wanderers faction, or I guess factionless, you know, core set, and some art. And then from there, I kind of extrapolated like a whole color story, which you'll notice is actually our brand colors. That was on purpose. You know, we will be releasing the more cards in the Wanderers over time. So treating that like our core set and actually having that be Luminous brand rather than having its own brand. Like each faction that we'll come out with that's a true faction actually has like its own kind of brand identity. It'll have its own, you know, little like logo and color scheme and feel. And so the Wanderers kind of felt like it needed to be like actually Luminous branded, so that it's always kind of returning back to that. And so, you know, you'll see a lot of those colors being used in the frame, and even in some of the artwork. But the other thing with the Wanderers is that the theme is sort of exploration. When we decided to make this core, you know, factionless set first before we did anything else, you know, I was talking to Corey and to, you know, the Collins and like everyone on the team about like, so like what makes these people a set? Like they're all kind of from all over the place. You know, there's some from future factions teased in there. But I think the thing that like binds them all together is that they've kind of broken away from their faction and like started to explore the world of Ardua. So the idea of that like kind of torn paper and like, you know, messed up paper is like, you know, kind of rugged. I've got like a rugged kind of torn texture there. Just kind of like, and then all of the art really looks like more rugged. It's like jungle landscapes or forest landscapes.
Yeah, I know one of the through lines with the art direction specifically was that jungle theme, kind of like late 19th century, early 20th century, kind of like Teddy Roosevelt style, like frontiersman kind of vibe, but with the sci-fantasy twist. I know that was like a pretty common theme. You'll see it a lot on the garb of the Wanderers. I think like Chartered Expeditioner, Scar-Suited General, some of the clothing that they're wearing was inspired by that like 19th century, 20th century, like frontiersman kind of vibe. Maybe not the best like in the world for what they were doing, but it's a cool aesthetic.
Yeah. And that's definitely what we got, some of the colors. And then these slides are actually also
the oldest art we have, but new art to people because these aren't Wanderer cards.
Yeah, these are definitely some of our oldest like slides because we were starting to get art and we really were concerned with like making sure that the art, you know, at least in some way was cohesive and matched each other, even though like certain pieces will be a little different, you know, pieces for certain factions. So you'll see here, these are, you know, on this slide, mostly pieces from an upcoming faction, the Kinda, and the Disciples. But yeah, these are like some of the oldest pieces that we've had, but we have been working on these factions for so long and pivoted to do the Wanderers first that, you know, we were able to sort of like base the Wanderers art off of this, you know, this art. So yeah, it's exciting. You get to use these.
all of this art is public, so it's all good to share. My favorite piece of art we have, I think, across all the art we've had, is the shrimp there on the right. He is my favorite. I have him hanging above my computer.
Yeah, and if you'll notice on Discord, it's my Discord avatar. We're a big fan of that guy in our house. We were so excited when we got it. And then, yeah, this is just two more really kind of earlier pieces of art for future factions. But, you know, just the idea of like setting all this art next to each other and going like, does this all like vibe together? Which Collin and Corey have done a really great job of like, you know, sourcing artists and then giving them a good sense of what the world looks like. So it's been really easy for me. Like, I don't feel like I've had any moments where we've gotten art back and I'm like, that doesn't really like gel or mesh with what we're doing. It all like really does. And some of the greatest compliment that I feel like we've gotten whenever we show people the Wanderers is that everything feels like it's from the same world. That it feels very intentional, which that's all down to Collin and Corey for sure. Made my job easy because the art's really the start of the show. Everything I do just kind of props that up.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take some amount of credit for it, but Corey's art creates are continually improving. The faction art is just phenomenal. Across the board, it's we should be rolling out some previews pretty soon. And then here's the transition from the cool art we have to the card back.
Wait, Collin, you might want to put your thing down.
Oh, was I muted? Was I muted the whole time?
Yeah, just there.
Oh, that's good. Cool. Yeah, I was saying really profound things. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I was saying all sorts of cool things about how it's all my idea. Corey didn't do anything. No, I was complimenting Corey on the fact that everything is everything in here that we're seeing is in large part to things that are in his brain. I'll take some credit for sourcing artists and making things keep on track and some of the early concept arts, but the reason everything looks so good is because of Corey, and I'm really, really excited to start sharing more of the art that we're getting back. Some of the faction art is like phenomenal.
Yeah.
And
No, it definitely is. I'm like blown away every single day by the art that we're getting back, and I just like can't wait to start laying it into the card frames, you know, for each faction and start like putting that out there.
Yeah, we should honestly be starting to roll out some previews. Maybe not of cards, but of the art. Like we can start showcasing some of it because it's too good not to share. But let's transition to the card back.
Yeah. So this was the thing I was the most nervous about. You would think like the logo or something like that would be the thing to be nervous about, but knowing with these types of games that the card back is not something we can change. We can change almost anything else. Like the logo can down the line be tweaked. Like color schemes can be tweaked. The website can be fully redesigned. The card fronts, like the frames, can be redesigned and like should be over time. But the card back has to stay the same. And it had to be done in a relatively short amount of time to meet our print deadline for the Wanderers. So I basically panicked over this and did a big Pinterest board where I just threw a whole bunch of ideas at it. You know, I try to really hone in on this like kind of classic playing card style back. I really like the symmetry of playing cards, and then also pulling in some like sort of whimsical elements, you know, fantasy elements. So you can kind of see here the things that are on my board. I also like the kind of like celestial vibe that some of these have. So yeah, and I knew that I really liked, again, that very, very first piece of art that any of us saw, which was the dragonfly. It didn't work just as itself for the card back. Honestly, I was like, let's just use this. But what we knew we needed was to have the name, and the name didn't fit well anywhere in that art. There was really no place for like the nameplate to be, that it wasn't like running into the art and being kind of messy. And then two, we had like a sort of a different view of what the luminous bloom would look like than that original piece of art had. We knew we wanted it to be a little bit more iridescent and glowing. So that kind of meant that I needed to adjust. So what I did was I took that original piece of art in, and then I sort of like simplified it and painted over it, and then also illustrated a luminous bloom for the dragonfly to be kind of like dipping into and kind of gathering like power from. And then the outer part, thinking back to like some of those traditional playing card styles in like more kind of traditional Gothic fantasy styles too. We've got the three orbs here in the sort of triangle shape that sort of mirrors the triangle shape that the dragonfly makes. And then just kind of like it against like a sunset sky. So yeah, that was kind of the idea behind the card back, is like really harkening back to that original piece of art that was really inspiring, but then like simplifying it for print, the small size. And then, yeah, I mean, I'm generally happy with how it turned out. I still like sometimes freak out and I'm like, what if I hate it in 10 years? But I think it's true of all of these card games that have to have their card back be the same because of, competitive play reasons. Everyone probably hates their card back in 10 years. So I decided I would do my best. And I really do like it. I think it, turned out really lovely. And I love the dragonfly. We've like since made like some merch with it. We have t-shirts and pins, and people are always very drawn in by that piece of art. So I feel like it was a good choice to use. I feel like it's really unique in the space.
We still need to name him.
He does need a name. Yeah. I just call him like the dragonfly. But yeah.
Maybe that's a fun poll on Discord. Do you have the original piece of art handy so I can? We've been referencing it a lot.
Yeah.
I think, or even the early prototype card backs would be fun to show. I think.
Yeah.
Maybe even some of the early like frame designs that we had. If you have those handy, that's kind of fun. So yeah, what we ended up with the Wanderers was I think version 4 of the frames.
Yeah, let me see.
Like we had some original prints done for Gen Con 2024 when we were in the playtest hall, and those there was actually the Kenda and the Disciple. We played those, or we printed a bunch of those. The Disciples are completely indistinguishable from what they are now, and the frames, while I think were pretty good, definitely had some issues that we've since solved. There's been a lot of small tweaks here or there. I did like the card backs, but like Camri was saying, they were kind of hard for print. They were kind of busy. They weren't very good print files. A lot of the detail would get lost. But yeah, the original frame, just to kind of give some insight into where we ended up with, and let me get back to kind of the card frame as it is now, on the front side at least. Just going to do kind of a big version here. So you can see on Ashenal here, the orbs have a number next to them. In the original kind of every iteration of the factions of the cards, we had where each orb was a distinct icon. So if it cost 2 purple, it would have 2 purple symbols. If it cost 3 orange and 2 purple, it would have 3 orange and 2 purple symbols all the way down the left side. And it got really, really messy. We tried a few different ways to like stack them and make a kind of a design. We originally had it kind of like a vine weaving between the orbs to kind of help it visually stand out. We had the left side of the frame had like an entire like part of the frame that was kind of had sockets in it that the orbs could go into. So we did a lot of iterations on that, but I think what we came down to was like, it was hard to read at a glance, and B, thank you, Mr. Vance, and B, the iconography was just really small. which I guess lends to hard to read. So we went back to the drawing board a little bit, and we were like, well, we could just put the numbers next to it. And then Camry designed little elements around the actual orb icons to kind of like hold those numbers. And that makes it so that the maximum number of orbs you can have on a card is 6 in the Wanderers and will be 8 moving forward. Orange, purple, green, gray, open orb check, orange, purple, green, gray. So will we have anything that costs 8? Probably not. I'm not going to make any promises. Eventually we might, but yeah. So that was a fun kind of challenge that I think came up with a really good solution for.
Yeah,
And
I
Camry,
dropped
you
you a
take-
bunch of screenshots.
Yeah,
Colin,
yeah.
for the original piece of art, and then some card backs and card fronts from our original prototypes, which they've definitely improved, I will say. I'll have to like find pictures. Brittany and I, Corey's wife, took a trillion pictures of our prototype cards as though they were like the most beautiful thing in the world. And now I'm like, can't use these.
I might actually have some in my desk right here in front of me if I can go digging. Yeah, I do actually. That's funny. I mean, this is going to be kind of janky, but let's see here. So that's the playtest. That's the original printing, and then you can see we've got like Scrap Golem and the orb iconography. Oh no, that's just not going to work. But yeah, we printed out a bunch of the playtest cards. Oh, there are even older ones. Okay, so we've got the yellow ones. And then we've got the black card back ones. These were the actual playtest cards from Gen Con. There's like, I don't know, like 50 of these. But like the frames are like, have this wood texture and like, yeah. Yeah, if that's something people would be interested in. Oh, and then these got all messed up in the print. Yeah, I mean, these are not going to be super visible, but yeah, that's just in my desk. Okay, let me try to get the some of those images you shared. Yeah, here we go.
Yeah, so that's that original piece of art that we kind of based the card back from. So you can see it looks pretty much the same. It's just some things that we couldn't just use it directly. Yeah, no good place to put the word Luminous, and we did want the name of the game on the back. And then the Luminous Bloom doesn't really look like that. So Colin's about to show an attempt, like sort of a mock-up attempt that I did to try to like rectify that, idea. Me just sort of like mocking up ideas, but I didn't like that as much. And then, yeah, this is one of those, or whenever you switch to it, Colin, this is one of those older frames that he was showing from his desk. This was a green orb original frame design, which I mean, like, they're not terrible. It's just like, I really like where we landed, at the end of the day.
And then, yeah, here's the last thing is this kind of, we had this weird, I mean, I actually think it's a really cool design where like the left side of the frame, it like kind of makes an S shape or a little 5 shape where like the text box kind of like does this interesting like full art kind of thing where it moves off the left side of the frame and the right side. I don't know. I think it's really interesting. It's very visually like cool, but it doesn't. I think our biggest issue with it was like the art just got swallowed alive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we really wanted to showcase the art more, which I think like I kind of made the ask like, can the art go full bleed in the top 2/3 of the card, rather than having like a black border like you might see in a lot of games, which I know like sometimes is reserved for special versions. So I'm like, we can just be even more special in our special versions, because I just really wanted the art to not be like choked I wanted it to look, really nice.
Let me here. You keep talking. I'm gonna try to do something fun on OBS and see if this works.
Yeah.
Well, I have to finish doing it. So
Yeah, we really did try to kind of make this card frame work though, because we did really like this like layout idea. And I mean, we kept the layout pretty much the same. Some things that we actually really like settled on was the placement of the orbs. Those like we were pretty sure needed to be at the top left for when you fan out cards. That was something that Colin Bevis is left-handed, so he didn't like quite catch that right off the bat. That like most people would fan their cards that way, but that is kind of like a principle, a game design principle I later learned. Generally to put things in the left-hand side, the most important things, and then also placing our card title below the art rather than like above or in some other different place centered. We're all just sort of like design decisions we kind of made around that, like ergonomics.
yeah, so this is kind of like an example of like where it started. Like that original piece of art we got was amazing. It's the very first piece of art that Colin ever got, and it is just really good. And I really like where we ended up. Yeah, Paradox. I agree that the it is we really wanted the basic standard cards to feel really good. Like we wanted the game to look great on its own, but to have the cosmetics, which we're coming out with later in the year, to like really up level all of that. So the foil versions are going to be that standard frame, and those are going to be super special and cool. But we're also going to have a bunch of alternate frames, alternate arts. The actual kind of full arts, we're calling them ghost frames internally. Those are going to be stunning. We've since asked most of the artists to do full art composition so that like their art takes up the full card, so that when we do eventually do a full art for them, we have all of that available. It's looking pretty good. And this is the last kind of bit we have, Camri, right?
Yeah. I just took some screenshots of my like Pinterest board around like card frame design itself. So yeah, I just like kind of have this like Pinterest board called Cool Cards. And I just, pin any kind of game. It doesn't even have to be a game similar to ours, just any game that has cards. Just to try to get ideas, especially because we will be like changing the frames up faction to faction. Everything will stay in the same place, but we are stylistically changing things up. So having this a bunch of ideas at the ready was really important. And then also working with another designer, Isak, who's been helping us with some of those frames, just like bringing more creative ideas. So like I had to kind of communicate like what I thought good meant to him, which is, always kind of a thing. Like you have to get it out of your own head of like what you're looking for. So
Yeah. I think we kind of came up with, and you'll see this a lot in a lot of modern card games, is this kind of basic structure of what the UI of it is, basically, where it's cost in top left, most important information middle center. It is, I think, from a user experience standpoint, just the best way to do it, and you'll see it kind of repeated over and over again from most modern card games. We don't know if this is true, but we think Richard Garfield might have been left-handed because of the way Magic's frame design is. And you'll also notice in Magic, the Future Sight frame looks a lot like this. So they, about 15 years, about 15 years into Magic's life, they were like, you know what? Our frame could be better. And then they did the Future Sight frame, which is left aligned cost, center middle name, attack health it is very interesting to see. But this is where we ended up, as everyone who's purchased our product knows. And to Nathan's point, he said earlier, yeah, the little flags we have. This was I think it was just like something we wanted, and Camry executed really well. So like this is a very subtle part of the frame that you might not have even noticed, but units have the little orange carrot, spells have the little purple like flag, and relics have the little green like triangle next to them. And that's a shorthand so that when you're holding it in your hand, you can quickly determine, or if someone plays it across from you, you can very quickly visually identify what it is that they're playing. Same thing with the pillboxes in the fast spells, or and this gets a little more esoteric, where like the battle skill pillboxes are that purple red color. The trigger ability skill box or pillboxes are the green. So all of that kind of goes to the visual identity of the card, or the user experience of the card. Even like Silgar, there you see your units have Collin, and then everything inside of that has a shadow box around it to basically separate that as a different thing. Because like a unit with first wave wouldn't have that little shadow box behind it, but because another card is giving these units first, second, third wave, that's where you'll see that little very subtle visual distinction. I think Kinetic Harness has it as well as a few. I think there's maybe another card as well that has that like shadow box. But those are things that kind of all add to the experience without anyone probably noticing it. I mean, anyone in the chat who didn't know that, or is that news to anyone? Is that surprising to anyone? Paradox or Benny, or I'm just curious.
Yeah,
like if y'all noticed any of that.
The guys kept hitting me with, new things. And when we were kind of getting down to the wire on a lot of this, like I'm plugging in the text on the cards, we're making small tweaks, and then it would be like, okay, so we need some way for like the battle skills to like kind of stand out. We need some way for like to show that like all of these things are kind of contained and like they act on like another card. So yeah, those were all kind of like my attempts at doing that. And then the little sort of flags to denote the card type. That was like another sort of example of that double encoding. You could just have the word unit relic spell, which would probably work. And then maybe you could have like a color. Originally we had sort of a color around the text box, but obviously the color is not telling you a lot if you can't see color well. So, and then also too, when you're fanning the cards, you might not be able to see much of that. So you really want that at a glance, a few pieces of information need to be imparted to you really quickly when you're playing. It's like the cost, you need to be able to see those orbs really clearly fast. You need to be able to see what card type it is, so like under what context you're playing it. So like those are like the things that you want to be able to like see first and really kind of like grab onto, even if you haven't like read the card fully yet.
Oh yeah, Nathan, the attack and health symbol being like a spear and a shield is very subtle, but it is something when you notice it, it's there. Also, yeah, Paradox, the icon, the unique icon is in the top right. That's the gold symbol is in the top right. So that's another very subtle nod. Camry's design in general is very subtle, but it's really, I think, elegant as well. The health on the favored is different. Durability is a different icon. They all have the same visual identity. I mean, I don't think anyone would be mad if we showed off what the disciple frame looks like tonight.
Yeah. Do you have
it? I think we can. Do you have it handy?
Yeah.
All right. Let's give everyone a little sneak peek of the disciple frame. The basic standard frame for the disciples.
Yeah, let me grab it. Basic frame. I'm just gonna like pull a screenshot.
Yeah, it's we're getting some of the standard frames back from our designer, and kind of going to the visual identity of easy to see at a glance, because the factions can't be played with one another. It's really, really important that when you see a faction card, you know what faction it's from. And that's been a really fun challenge, I think, is kind of figuring out how to represent these factions with these frames while making them visually interesting, but also not over the top, because it's pretty easy to go over the top. And the alt frames will be over the top. That's going to be something that will definitely be over the top, but that's intended in part of it. Okay, Camri just shared it. Let's do. All right, so dun, 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 dun. There is the Disciple basic card frame. Not
Ignore
a whole lot different, huh?
Ignore all the text. The text is
the text is irrelevant. It's immediately distinguishable against the Wanderers first and foremost, but it shares the same frame elements. I mean, Camri should be the one saying all of this instead of me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, but you hit it. Like, you have to make it so that it's clear it's a Luminous card, like it's not a card from another game, which is kind of tough. Like if you're like, it needs to look different, but not so different that someone's like, what game's this? So like using the same font for the card name, like all the same fonts, using the same like symbols, obviously, and in the locations that they're in, everything being in the same location helps so that you still know it's a Luminous card. But then, yeah, like Collin said, whenever you are looking at all your cards, you're not going to accidentally shuffle a Disciples card in with like a Volcanics or another future faction card. And then you would know which ones are the Wanderers and can be shuffled in with Disciples or any future faction. So just like making it really clear to everyone, yourself and others at the table, what you're playing with, what faction you're playing, what cards you have, but that they all still look like the same game. Everything's in the same place.
You want to talk about some of the inspiration for the Disciples?
Yeah. So this is, I can't take full credit for this. This is our friend Isak helped with, visualizing this. But, when we were chatting with him about it, it's, Disciples are obviously, more technological than, you might see some of the other factions. They're really interested in relics and, using this etched metal kind of look, and really like leaned into that. But it also has like the etching has a little bit of like runic sort of texture. This really kind of goes back to their uniforms. A lot of straight lines, go into that. So yeah, putting that up against a Wanderers card, which like we said, kind of has that theme of like exploration and ruggedness. The Disciples are much more controlled, precise, and maybe even like there's a coldness there as well, using that metal and precise, kind of lines.
Yeah, you can see that the attack and health kind of bleed into the art with the Wanderers, whereas like that doesn't happen in the Disciples frame at all.
Yeah.
You also see behind the text box there's a different texture as well. I believe it's
like a brushed metal with like little plates and things. So like going beyond the basic frame, there'll be like even more of that in our like alternate frames that really kind of lean into that more, that very kind of like almost more man-made look rather than something that's organic.
Yeah, and then you can see the Disciples like icon there at the bottom middle, compared to the Wanderers have the first edition right now, but in the future they'll have the Wanderers icon as well to also signify. But yeah, I mean that's a little sneak peek for the people here tonight. We'll probably do some sort of sneak peek every week for something or other, some art, some lore spotlight. I think the other frame we have currently done is the Volcanics, so maybe we can share that another week as well. But we can, we'll not give away too much, but yeah, we have some ghost frames as well that are really cool. We can start sharing as well. But that's going to wrap things up pretty well. It is, unless anyone has any questions specifically that they want answered while we're here about anything we've talked about, or if they're curious about anything, we're pretty much open books. We have to wait a little bit for them to be able to respond to that. But yeah, that's everything we had for tonight. It was kind of just a basic get to know kind of where we got, which is, it's really cool seeing like these cards is pretty crazy. Like these playtest cards that we had printed that are just like, it's pretty wild to see how far we've come. It's we don't often look back, so this has been fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's been really, really gratifying to work on this. I keep telling like the team, like it kind of pulls together things that I have done, things that I know how to do, and then like pushes me to learn more, things that I haven't tried or wanted to try. So like digital painting, like with the card back, I had a sense of how that was done, but, kind of doing that. But then, branding, logo design, packaging design are all things that like designers love to do. And you don't always get the chance to do it or do it as creatively as maybe you hope in like the corporate setting. So, it's nice to actually build a brand from scratch and then like own that all the way across like so many assets. Oh, actually, I did have some more screenshots, Colin, of the con booth.
Did you? I might not have downloaded those. I can get some of that in there before we wrap up.
Unless there's questions. But yeah, I also like took screenshots of. Oh wait, maybe I didn't send them.
You didn't send those through, but I can get them in there. But the I mean, this is comparison and evolution. Yeah, we can probably have a whole week, a whole night of like, maybe once more of the disciples and the Kenda have been spoiled, we can actually kind of go through what they looked like in the very old days versus where we got to, because boy, do the disciples look different.
Yeah, all of those playtest cards Colin was holding up were actually disciples in Kenda. That's what we were playing with at Gen Con playtest hall before we even made the Wanderers. Yeah. So what Colin's showing here is screenshots from my Pinterest board for our con booth, which if y'all have met us at a convention or been to a convention, I like agonized over how to make this booth look like different and be, a good representation of us, especially as a brand new game. I didn't want to just kind of like slap some art out there and go like, yeah, this is Luminous. So I kind of went with this like, I don't know, for better or worse, Renaissance fair sort of vibe. I feel like Renaissance fairs are like sci fantasy in a nutshell. They're not like any actual one period of time on Earth. It's like magic and medieval and futuristic and everything. So I kind of pulled some ideas from that. So yeah, these were just like my Pinterest boards for that, because that's the other really big piece of this that was like new to me. I've done mostly digital design work, so the idea of like decorating a space that fits your brand was really exciting, and like making things for that and making sure all of our banners and like different like booth materials all kind of go together. It's like a very like 3D way of thinking. And every time we show up at a con and the layout's a little bit different, I have a moment where I spiral and then I come back.
She's very reasonable. She's very, very reasonable about it. Don't listen to her. I wanted to rip our banner in half because of how it has no fault of anyone's. Just a nightmare to make four corners taut and make it centered in exactly where we want it to be, but we'll get better.
Yeah, we'll only get better.
Nathan, scrap. I have an OG scrap here. What does it do? Nothing. It's a relic. This is before relics had durability. Like none of these. Yeah. Oh, we've got a relic unit here. That's a fun one. Y'all might recognize Ancient Servant there. That's one of the earliest pieces of art we had, but we turned him. Anyway, we're kind of rambling now, but unless anyone has specific questions, we'll be back next Monday with another two people yapping about something else. We can maybe start polling people in the Discord to figure out what's the most interesting. I think having Corey on to talk about the lore would be really, really interesting. I think that's not something that has been highlighted, I mean, fully adequately yet. We have it. It's a lot. There's a lot there, but I think that's something a lot of people would be interested in. All right. Well, I mean, thanks. All right. Yeah. Thanks, Benny. Thanks, y'all. We'll see y'all later. See y'all next week. Thanks for stopping in.
Bye.
Bye.